Have you ever noticed them? The audience that lives inside your head? They are there when you are choosing an outfit in the morning. They are there when you are about to speak up in a meeting. They are there especially in the dead of night when you are replaying a conversation, analyzing every word you said. This invisible audience, this council of silent judges, their opinions often feel more real, more solid than your own. Their potential disapproval feels more dangerous than any physical threat. And so you perform for them. You edit your thoughts. You soften your truth. You exhaust yourself trying to win the approval of ghosts. You have been told that this is just a lack of self-confidence, that you just need to love yourself more. But this is a shallow explanation for a profoundly deep mechanism. The great depth psychologist Carl Jung offered a more radical and more empowering truth. He taught that our desperate need for external validation is not a sign of what we lack. It is a map, a treasure map pointing directly to the magnificent power we were taught to bury. This journey of shadow work is not about learning to ignore the audience. It is about realizing that you are not the performer on the stage. You are the entire theater. And it is time to turn on the house lights. To dismantle the power of this invisible audience, we must first understand how it was assembled. Who are these judges? And how did they get a permanent seat in the theater of your mind? This audience was not formed by chance. It was curated, piece by piece, during your most formative years. It is a ghost committee, made up of the most significant authority figures from your childhood. Your parents, your teachers, your religious leaders, your older siblings, even your peers on the playground. These were the original mirrors in which you first saw your own reflection. Their reactions, their approval, their disapproval, became the raw data you used to construct your first sense of self. As children, our survival depends on the approval of these figures. We are wired to be exquisitely sensitive to their feedback. A smile from a parent feels like the warm sun of life itself. A frown, a sharp word, a sigh of disappointment feels like a threat of annihilation. So we learn to perform. We learn which parts of us will be applauded and which parts will be booed off the stage. Maybe you learned that being quiet and studious earned you praise, so you suppressed your playful, loud side. Maybe you learned that being funny and entertaining made your anxious mother laugh, so you became the family clown, hiding your own sadness. Maybe you learned that being tough and independent was valued, so you pushed down your vulnerability and your need for help. Each of these choices was a brilliant survival strategy at the time. You built a persona, a mask, that was perfectly designed to win the approval of your specific audience. The problem is, you grew up, you left home, you entered the world, but the audience never left. You internalized them. Their voices, their standards, their judgments became your own. The disapproving glare of your father became the voice of your inner critic. The anxious worrying of your mother became your own constant humming anxiety. The competitive taunts of a sibling became your own relentless drive to prove yourself. This is what we mean by the invisible audience. You are no longer performing for the actual people. You are performing for their internalized ghosts. And these ghosts have immense power because they are tied to your deepest, most primal need. The need to belong. The need to be safe. Let's imagine a man named David. David is a creative, insightful marketing executive. He has a brilliant idea for a new campaign. In a meeting, he starts to present his idea, but then he catches a glimpse of his boss,
a notoriously critical man, leaning back with his arms crossed. Instantly, David's throat tightens. His mind goes blank. He starts to stumble over his words, and he waters down his own brilliant idea, making it smaller, safer, less controversial. He leaves the meeting feeling defeated and ashamed. What happened? In that moment, his boss's skeptical expression triggered the old program. It activated the ghost of his hypercritical father, who used to say, "Don't get too big for your britches. Who do you think you are?" David wasn't just afraid of his boss's judgment. He was terrified of the old, familiar feeling of being shamed and cut down to size by his father. The past was projecting itself onto the present. He was reacting to the invisible audience, not the person in the room. This is a crucial insight from the work of Carl Jung. The external world often serves as a screen upon which we project our own internal dramas. The power these people seem to have over you is actually the power you have given to their internalized ghosts. And you are the only one who can take that power back. The first step in this process is simply to become aware of the audience, to turn the lights on in the theater. Instead of just feeling the vague, free-floating anxiety of being judged, you start to identify the judges. I remember a period in my life where I was terrified of writing. I would sit down, full of ideas, and be paralyzed by a voice that said, "This isn't good enough. No one will care. This is foolish." For years, I thought that voice was just me, my own self-doubt. But through this kind of shadow work, I did the exercise of asking, whose voice is that really? And I was shocked when the answer came. It was the voice of a specific English teacher I had in high school, a man I deeply respected, but who was incredibly demanding and rarely gave praise. I had internalized his impossibly high standards, and he had been sitting in the front row of my invisible audience for 20 years, silencing my creativity. Just seeing him, just naming him, was a moment of profound liberation. It wasn't a flaw in my character. It was a ghost. And you can learn to exorcise ghosts. So, I invite you now to a moment of reflection. Who is in your primary audience? Whose approval do you find yourself unconsciously seeking? Whose disappointment do you fear the most? Is it a parent? A partner? A past mentor? You don't have to do anything about it yet. The first, most powerful step is simply to see them. To recognize that the judgment you fear is not a universal truth. It is the opinion of a specific, fallible human being whose voice has taken up residence in your mind. By seeing the judge, you begin to separate from their judgment. And in that separation, a new space begins to open.
So we have turned on the lights in the theater. We have identified the judges in our invisible audience. But this awareness, while crucial, can lead to a deeper, more painful question. Why do their opinions still have so much power? Why does a single look of disapproval feel like a physical blow? Why does the hum of their potential judgment drain so much of our life force? The answer is not simply that we are insecure. The answer is far more profound and far more hopeful than that. The answer lies in one of the most beautiful and misunderstood concepts in all of depth psychology. It is what Carl Jung called the golden shadow. We are used to thinking of the shadow as the container for our darkness, our rage, our envy, our greed. And that is true, but it is only half the story. The shadow is simply the container for everything we have disowned about ourselves, and that includes our light. The golden shadow is the suitcase for all your magnificence, your brilliance, your untamed creativity, your fierce leadership, your unapologetic joy. Every positive, powerful, and radiant quality that at some point in your life you learned was too much. Maybe you were a child with a brilliant strategic mind, but you were told, "Don't be so bossy." So you hid your leadership. Maybe you had a wild, infectious joy, but you were told, "Calm down, you're being disruptive." So you hid your radiance. Maybe you were fiercely intuitive and spoke uncomfortable truths, but you learned this made others anxious. So you hid your wisdom. You learned that to be accepted, to belong, you had to dim your own light. You had to make yourself smaller, less threatening, more palatable. You exiled your own gold into the shadow, believing it was the price of admission for love and safety. And here is the key, the absolute core of this entire mechanism. When you disown a powerful part of yourself, it creates a void, a gaping hole where that power used to be, and the psyche, in its infinite wisdom, abhors a vacuum. It will seek to fill that hole, and it does so by seeking from the outside what it has rejected on the inside. Your constant, desperate need for approval is the echo of your own disowned power. The validation you seek from your boss is the validation you refuse to give to your own competence. The reassurance you need from your partner that you are lovable is the reassurance you deny your own magnificent heart. Your neediness is a treasure map written in the ink of your own longing. It is pointing you directly to the part of your golden shadow you have abandoned. Let's imagine a woman named Jessica. Jessica is a phenomenal analyst. She sees patterns no one else does. But as a child, she was always called a know-it-all. She learned that her intelligence made other kids feel insecure, so she hid her best insights to herself. She disowned her brilliance. Now, as an adult, she is paralyzed in meetings. She constantly seeks her manager's approval. She needs him to tell her that her work is smart, that her ideas have merit. She has outsourced the job of validating her own intelligence to him. Her need for his approval is not a sign of weakness. It is the ghost of the brilliant child she locked in the basement. I know this intimately. I grew up as a highly sensitive and empathetic child. I could feel everything. But my family environment was one where emotions were not discussed. They were a burden. I was told I was too sensitive. So I disowned my empathy. I put it in the shadow. I built a persona of being logical, detached, and unaffected. But this created a profound emptiness. I began to desperately seek emotional connection and validation from my friends and partners. I became what people would call needy. I needed them to reflect back to me the very warmth and empathy I had rejected in myself. My neediness was a compass, pointing me back to my own disowned heart. The healing wasn't about becoming less needy. It was about turning inward and reclaiming the sensitive, empathetic soul I had abandoned. And as I began to own that part of myself, to see it as a gift, not a flaw, the desperate need for external validation began to fade, because I was finally filling the void from the inside. This is the great, paradoxical secret of this work. The path to freedom from the need for approval is not to fight the need. It is to follow it. It is to look at your deepest craving for validation and ask the courageous question, what magnificent part of myself have I disowned that I am now asking others to see for me?
What power did I bury that I am now begging for a reflection of? The judgment you fear from the invisible audience is often a projection of your own judgment against your own light. You fear they will call you arrogant because you have judged your own brilliance as arrogance. You fear they will call you selfish because you have judged your own needs as selfish. You are afraid of them seeing the very gold you have taught yourself to hide. So the work of this stage of shadow integration is one of excavation. It is about looking into the abyss of your own neediness and seeing the golden reflection staring back at you. It is about realizing that you have been searching for spare change on the street when you have a king's ransom buried in your own backyard. And the map to that treasure is the very ache of your own longing.
So, the treasure map has been revealed. The longing you feel is not a void to be filled from the outside. It is a homing signal, calling you back to the disowned gold within your own shadow. How do we begin this sacred excavation? How do we start to bring that power back into the light? It begins with two powerful shadow work practices. The first practice is to name your judges. The second is to claim your gold. Let's start with the judges. As we discussed, the invisible audience in your head is not a vague, faceless crowd. It is a specific committee of internalized voices. By giving these voices a name and a face, you rob them of their amorphous, godlike power. You turn them from an overwhelming feeling of judgment into a specific, manageable memory of a person. I invite you to take out a journal for this practice. Create a page titled The Committee of Judges. And I want you to ask yourself this question. When I am most afraid of being judged, whose voice do I hear in my head? Whose face do I see? Write down the names or roles that come to mind. Be brutally honest. It might be my mother, my 7th grade teacher, Mr. Harrison, my competitive older brother, the popular girls from high school. Next to each name, write down the core message that this judge always seems to deliver. What is their favorite line? For the mother, it might be, "Are you sure that's a good idea? It seems risky." For the teacher, "You're smart, but you're lazy. You're not living up to your potential." For the brother, "I did it better. You'll never be as good as me." For the popular girls, "You're weird. You don't belong." This exercise can be incredibly revealing and sometimes painful. Be gentle with yourself. The point is not to blame these people. They were often doing the best they could with the programming they had. The point is to externalize the voices, to see clearly that the voice of your inner critic is not your voice. It is an echo, a recording. And once you can see the speaker, you can begin to question the speech. You can start to say, "Thank you for your opinion, Mom, but I am an adult now, and I can assess my own risks." Or, "Thank you, Mr. Harrison, but I no longer subscribe to your definition of success." You are moving from being a child who is terrified of the judge to an adult who can listen to and then consciously disagree with the members of their committee. You are taking your seat at the head of the table. Now for the second and more exciting practice, claiming your gold. As we learned, your need for approval is a compass pointing to your disowned power. One of the most powerful clues to your golden shadow is the quality you most admire in other people. That which you are drawn to in others is often that which is waiting to be born in you. So, turn to a new page in your journal.
Title it My Hidden Gold. And now I want you to list 3 people you admire. They can be people you know personally or public figures. Next to each name, write down the specific quality that you are most drawn to in them. Not their looks or their success, their inner quality. Maybe you admire a friend's unapologetic confidence. Maybe you admire an artist's wild, unconventional creativity. Maybe you admire a leader's calm, unwavering authority. Look at those qualities you wrote down: confidence, creativity, authority. Now I want you to entertain a radical idea, a core tenet of Jungian psychology. Those qualities are not external to you. They are reflections. They are dormant aspects of your own golden shadow projected onto the screen of other people. You admire their confidence because you have disowned your own. You are drawn to their creativity because you have suppressed your own. You respect their authority because you have abdicated your own. The final step of this exercise is to write a new sentence for each quality. Start the sentence with, I am reclaiming my unapologetic confidence. I am reclaiming my wild, unconventional creativity. I am reclaiming my calm, unwavering authority. Say these sentences out loud. Feel them in your body. It might feel strange. It might feel like a lie. Your inner judges will likely protest loudly. That's okay. You are planting a new seed in the fertile ground of your psyche. You are calling your own gold home. This is the beautiful, alchemical work of integrating the golden shadow. You stop looking outside for what is already inside. You see that the hunger for approval is just homesickness for your own magnificence. You begin to realize that the reason you care so much what others think is because you have not yet learned to be in awe of what you think, of what you feel, of what you are. This journey is a profound act of self-love. It is the process of turning your attention away from the invisible audience and toward the magnificent unfolding mystery of your own soul. It is the journey of coming home to the one person whose approval truly matters: yourself.
Today, we have pulled back the curtain on the stage of our own minds. We have seen the invisible audience that holds us captive, and we have begun to name the ghosts that sit in judgment. We have learned that our relentless need for approval is not a sign of emptiness, but a compass pointing to the disowned treasures of our golden shadow. And we have started the courageous work of reclaiming that buried gold. This is a fundamental shift in the geography of the soul. It is the journey of moving your center of gravity from the shifting sands of other people's opinions to the solid ground of your own inner knowing. The work of Carl Jung and the path of shadow integration teaches us a liberating truth. You do not need to earn your worth. You do not need to perform for your value. Your magnificence is not up for debate. It is a fact of your existence. The only task is to remove the layers of conditioning and fear that have obscured it from your own view. This journey is not about becoming arrogant or narcissistic. It is about achieving a quiet, unshakable self-possession. It is about building an internal foundation so solid that the winds of external judgment can no longer knock you off your center. It's the difference between being a flickering candle, dependent on the world to shield it from the wind, and becoming an internal sun, radiating your own light, your own warmth, from a source that can never be extinguished. But as you begin this profound work of internal validation, as you start to rely less on the external world for your sense of direction, you may encounter a new and subtle challenge. You may feel a sense of being stuck. The old map, the one based on pleasing others and achieving external goals, is no longer valid. But the new map, the one drawn from your own inner truth, is not yet fully clear. You are in between worlds. And this feeling of being stuck, of not knowing the way forward, can be deeply unsettling. It can feel like you are adrift, without a current to carry you. Understanding this feeling not as a failure, but as a critical stage of reorientation is our next great task. And that is the journey we will take in our next video, Why You Feel Stuck in Life. Carl Jung's Path to Wholeness. I hope you will continue this journey of coming home. For today, your work is to continue the excavation. This community is a place to share the treasures you find. In the comments below, I invite you to share one piece of gold you have identified. What is one quality you admire in others that you are now willing to reclaim as your own? By sharing it, you declare its value. You speak its name into existence. And you inspire others to begin their own sacred treasure hunt. Thank you for your courage to look within. The journey to stop caring what others think is not about building walls around your heart. It is about discovering that your heart is a universe, vast enough and strong enough to hold its own light. And that is a truth worth building life on.